I think a lot can be said of ancient texts and scripture regarding the DMT experience. In my first publication, The Spirit in the Sky, Ancient Cosmological Gods and Where in the World We Find Them, I hypothesized that the ancient Egyptian myth of Osiris is essentially an ancient allegory and scientifically viable explanation regarding the otherworldly nature of DMT, the DMT experience, and where a scientifically astute society might in fact find it. For example, we already know that the DMT experience is likened to a so-called mini-death and subsequent spiritual resurrection, a statement which appears to hold much in common with popular religious trains of thought regarding gods of resurrection. Now, the tale of Osiris basically suggests a DMT extraction process whereby Osiris was tricked into being locked inside a wooden box and tossed into the River Nile before running aground and becoming further entombed within the trunk of an acacia tree. Osiris is then rescued before being killed once again and becoming associated with the constellation of Orion. Modern day DMT extractions appear to mimic this process, whereby the acacia is submerged in a liquid before becoming alchemically raised from within. But the myth of Osiris continues with a number of uncanny commonalities regarding the microscopic fingerprint of this otherworldly chemical compound. Osiris, we find, was likened to the so-called lifeblood of the acacia, at the same time as being somewhat celestially immortalized as a macroscopic god of resurrection, synonymous with the constellation of Orion. And it's here where things really start to become interesting, because within the lifeblood, or the sap of the acacia, we find highly extractable potentials of DMT, and two-dimensional renditions of DMT appear to be a comprehensive match with the constellation of Orion. As above, so below. Even more astounding, however, is the fact that DMT is found in the human body, namely the brain, cerebral spinal fluid, lungs, eyes, and visual cortex, which does in fact suggest that it could actually be acting like some kind of perceived reality modulator. Now, the etymology of Osiris is extremely revealing also, Os meaning both God and open, and iris being painstakingly obvious in relation to the human eye. But here's the kicker. The hieroglyphs which accompany our god of resurrection directly translate as Osiris, the seat of perception. Furthermore, and adding further weight to my original hypothesis, Osiris's physical attributes share a great deal in common with the photoreceptors of the human eye and those of the pineal gland in the human brain. For example, Osiris is classically depicted as being green-skinned and wearing a conical or cone-like headdress, the chief photoreceptor being green in colour, and described as cone-shaped also. The photoreceptor's functionality and interaction with photons of light being almost solely responsible for creating an internal canvas for our brains to build in a world of the incoming external information which surrounds us. So it's clearly suggestible that there's a lot more to the myths than first meets the eye, and that the myth of Osiris may in fact be better described as an archaic allegory for all things DMT. But DMT doesn't stand alone in the sky either. Within the context of the same constellation, should we endeavour to listen to the myths once again and look up and connect the proverbial dots as intended, we also create the neurotransmitter serotonin. As the myth of Osiris continues, via the so-called pyramid texts and the mysteries of Abydos, we learn that Osiris crosses the Nile in a cosmic barge named the Neshmet. Immediately below the constellation of Orion is Lepus, the hare or rabbit. Osiris, we find, shares a dual mythology with an anthropomorphic hare-headed deity called Unafa. And by way of connecting the dots, or Osiris, albeit Orion, with the head of the rabbit, via the star the Egyptians themselves identified as the Neshmet, the cosmic barge, we can further connect the mythology with the stars with the next logical connection point, which comes via a star named Nile. Nile being an ancient name associated with the notion of joyfulness, the profundity of which is simply astounding, because it would appear then that the star which makes this two-dimensional rendition of serotonin in the sky possible is purposely named so and with obvious connotations to which describe the functionality of the neurotransmitter it's clearly depicting. And finally, the all-encompassing, if not unifying constellations of Orion and Lepus were actually likened to another deified mythology known as Sa, or Sahu, who the Egyptian described as the incorruptible soul, the hidden one. I think that the fact that DMT is created endogenously, that certain breathing techniques and meditation may possibly facilitate extraneous interdimensional potentials without introducing it via external modes or substances. I mean, DMT's in our lungs, right? That alone suggests that the act of breathing is a psychedelic experience. Breathwork combined with meditation appears to me to be the way to go. Traditional philosophies the globe over suggest that trans-dimensional experiences are in fact obtainable if the groundwork is put in. Ancient scripture suggests the same. The Bible states take no thought, meditate, focus upon the forehead, the pineal. When thine eye be single, thy body shall be filled with light. The pineal gland being the light receptor of the body. Again, we witness a tried and tested methodology which suggests that light is in fact some way responsible for changing the perception of one's own reality. Do I think the entities are a manifestation of our minds, or do I think they're external? Well, that's a great question. I think the jury's going to be out on that one for quite some time, yeah. Personally, I think I've got quite a wild imagination, but some, most, if not all of the inexplicably multifaceted impossibilities I've witnessed during my interactions with these freakishly familiar entities, I think by way of showing me the proverbial nuts and bolts of material stroke immaterial reality is way, way beyond the machinations of my own metaphysical mind stuff. I think Laird Scranson's research offers us insight into an ancient cosmology shared by both the Dogon and modern day Buddhism, whereby the Buddhist tradition suggests that our most sacred teachings were bestowed upon them by a non-human source. The Dogon, however, insist that the same cosmology was transferred, if not imparted to them, via a non-material source. He goes on to then explain that our universe was possibly created alongside an immaterial twin other universe, whereby our own material existence has an imperfect knowledge of the cosmos but the tools to act upon our desires, but the immaterial twin has a perfect and complete understanding but an inability to act. The Dogon cosmology appears to share a lot in common with the brightest minds of the 21st century of scientific thinking, and for all intended purposes the DMT experience appears to be a traversable plane of existence, inhabited by highly knowledgeable entities with a perfect understanding of the nuts and bolts of so-called reality. So my guess, are they real? Yeah, why not? As far as I'm concerned, nothing's off the table. The strangest thing I've personally gleaned from the DMT experience was in fact wholly interrelated to the UAP phenomenon. After my own extremely poor judgment after inhaling a bowl of DMT infused root bark known as changa, without much effect, I rather idiotically inhaled a breakthrough dose of freebase DMT, both of which took hold in less than a heartbeat. The experience itself was both rewarding and truly terrifying, as I found myself surrounded by pixelated jesters which continually cascaded through the open window of my balcony. They weren't very happy to see me and continued to psycho-spiritually slap me back down to earth. I duly submitted, and I somewhat submerged into the tile work that I was laying on, which propped up this particular rendition of reality before being given the keys to the cosmos. This experience only got weirder from the moment I came back. I genuinely thought I'd die. Like, I wasn't even sure if I was in this meat suit alive and well. So I got up and called my editor to make sure that he could hear me, to make sure that I wasn't some kind of ghost in the afterlife. So Adam picks up my call and reassures me that everything's fine, everything's okay, while I stare out of the window, which only moments ago was a doorway between dimensions. What do I see? Well, I snapped the phone shut. Sorry, Adam, but I had to grab a shot, albeit photographic evidence of the gigantic golden cigar-shaped tube which was passing above me in the sky, but my screen was blank. I could see it, but my phone couldn't pick it up. It couldn't pick up what my post-DMT ocular capabilities were perceiving right in front of me. It was truly astonishing, and it's a vision I'll never forget. It was beautiful, and I relate this once again to the ocular capacity of the human experience and the current tools that are disposable. Maybe these things are everywhere, but just beyond the current scope of our own comprehension. Who knows? So, would I ever participate in an extended state DMT experience? 10 years ago? No problem. I've got a son now, though, so no thank you, it's not for me. I actually see it as a spoiler for what's next, if I'm honest. I mean, who wants to see the future by an intravenous fortune teller? Not me. I think I'll live out this movie and enjoy the rest of the show before spoiling the end. I've seen the trailer and I've really enjoyed it, but I think I'll wait a few more years to see if there's another teaser after the credits of this particular movie are scrolled. If I had to describe my experiences with the DMT entities and how they've affected my perception of reality, I'd probably state that prior to my initial DMT experiences, I was pretty much steadfast in the notion that when we die, it's simply fade to black. Box me up and I'm done. Now, though, I couldn't be much further from that particular train of thought. I wouldn't say I was scared of dying before. In fact, I probably hadn't given it much thought as I was genuinely having far too much fun pushing the boundaries of actually being alive. As I've grown older, though, I've started to contemplate my immortality. In fact, I feel that the older I get, the faster time goes by. If anything, though, I think that my perception of reality has changed vastly over the course of my research. Is there life after death? What happens when the proverbial lights go out? Well, I think that light has a lot to do with the answer. The fact that our perception of reality is strictly limited to the ocular capacity of the human experience across the electromagnetic spectrum, which accounts for a mere 0.0035% of the entire spectrum, suggests that we're not probably in fact privy to the entire picture. The fact that we're essentially vibrating energy in a sense, and that when this experience is over, that particular energy transforms and doesn't die because it can't die, fills me with a lot of comfort that there is something else after this so-called here and now. Are the DMT entities privy to this next life or otherworldly other? They certainly appear to be, and the familiarity of the hyper-vivid immaterial realm that we see fills me with a fascination and extinguishes the previous finality of fading to black.